welcome to episode 74 of the Boot Nerds podcast. J-Mike, what's going on?
I'm all good. I'm back from holiday. And sorry about the missing an episode last week, but man's got to chill at times. So yeah, we just took a small break, and that's what's happening in the summer. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. We've had a crazy heat wave coming through like the last week and a half. It's been like super, super hot. So just basically getting really sweaty every day. That's what I've been up to.
You'll have snow in a week. That's Canada weather for you right there. It's crazy. It seems like everything, every week there's like, the weather has changed drastically again. It's just...
Yeah, you know what? I mean, if 2020 hasn't been extreme enough for everybody, but the weather has been like one extreme or the next. We never really had like the spring. There was no like kind of cool and then it slightly warmed up. It just went from like snow to like hot.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
But at least now you can go outside, you can chill, you can take the cars out. It's nice.
It's not the worst.
It's not the worst. So today we are going to talk about something rather interesting. It's something we've seen a trend go. It's been there for obviously many, many years, but it's becoming more and more obvious these days with more and more high-profile players doing this, which is the question if we're gonna one day see high-profile players abandoning boot contracts simply to wear whatever they want. And it's we can mention a lot of players, but it's also interesting to look at, why do they have boot contracts in the first place? And how free are they within those boot contracts to do what they want? And also, what would be the consequence of them leaving said boot contracts, both for their personal economy and also like the way the whole boot sponsorship thing is structured at the moment. So quite an interesting topic. Obviously, there's also going to be a Q&A section at the end as per usual. We have some great questions for today, so stick around for that. And I think with that said, we should just get to it. But before we do so, make sure you slap a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you'd rather listen to us just in audio while you're driving or doing the dishes, whatever you're doing, mowing the lawn for your dad. It could be whatever. You can also go to bootnerds.com and listen to the audio-only version in whatever platform you'd like. So, Josh, players and their contracts. Like we've seen Mesut Özil, his contract with Adidas, it ran out. We've seen Hector Bellerin. There's been he's been kind of wearing whatever he wanted. We've seen Jason McLean for many, many seasons wearing just about, again, whatever he wants. Every time there's a new Nike limited edition Mercurial coming out, he's got it more or less immediately after release. We've seen Wilfried Zaha wearing like boots he's not necessarily supposed to wear with the Mercurial Dream Speeds and CR7 Safaris. Like he's not on the list of players officially wearing the boots, and I could basically go on. So is there like do you think there's a new wave of players who are just maybe wanting to switch boots a little bit more, try new things?
Look, I think that professional sports has become more about the money now than it ever has before, and. Look, if you're a professional anything, the reason why they call it professional is because that's what you do for your job.
You get paid.
And as a professional athlete, you have a pretty short window to make your money. And then after the fact, if you made enough money, maybe you can retire at 32, 33, 34, 50 if it's Messi or Ronaldo, because it doesn't seem like they're slowing down anytime soon. But you have that short window to make as much money as possible. And I think that historically it seems to have been the trend where a lot of, look, there's some big names on the list that we're going to talk about, and their situation is a little bit different. But some of these, I don't want to say lesser known names, but not as high profile as the really big names. The contracts that they're signing with these brands, and I don't know these numbers. I don't think anybody really does. I think that the cost, what they're actually making, is kind of negligible in the grand scheme of what they can make from other endorsement deals and not having ties to certain brands in regards to their boots. So I would wonder if just not having that restriction helps them in other forms of endorsement deals.
It could be, but then it could also have like a negative impact. I mean, if you can take, let's say Mesut Özil, he's been an Adidas athlete for ever since 2016, or did he join before?
I'm trying to think. No, it was after Vapor 8.
Yeah.
What year was that? So it was like 2013, 14.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been with Adidas for a while, and every time he's then approached another brand, or his agent has approached another brand, he can go in and say, look, my client is Mesut Özil. He's a big global name within football, but he's also like a big name at Adidas. He's one of their faces of their boots. He's got a lot of commercial value there. You want to jump on that train. And now that his Adidas contract is over, he's going to either develop, we don't know if he's going to develop his own brand of boots or if he's just going to shop around and wear whatever he wants. But that familiarity and, the credibility you get from being associated with such a big brand and them spending a lot of money on you, that kind of goes away with, let's say, Özil or Adidas letting that contract run out. So I understand what you mean, but maybe it also goes both ways. Do you get?
Oh no, for sure. I totally get what you're saying. Look, a brand's not going to pay you a ton of money to represent their product if they don't see value in you.
Oh,
I think with Özil at this point, not that there isn't value to his image, but he probably wanted more money than what anybody was willing to pay, or he just straight up walked and didn't negotiate anything, which I have a hard time believing, given that I'm sure he's made a pretty decent amount of money in endorsement deals over the course of his career so far.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, we see a lot of this as players get towards the end of their career or maybe a little bit past their prime. Brands will drop them. Like one example that I was very surprised in terms of how it ended was Iniesta. He was such a high-profile athlete for the Nike brand throughout his entire career, and the second he steps away from Barcelona, they dropped him?
Yeah.
Like that was very surprising to me. I just did not expect that.
And I don't know if Nike dropped him or if it was like a mutual termination, because I could also see it if we look at it from Iniesta's side of things, that if he then went to Japan. I don't know the deal, what his deal with ASICS is, but if he went to Japan and said, okay, I'm going to sign with a Japanese brand, meaning that, I'm going to sign with a brand that's really strong in this market that I'm going to play it. I'm marketable as hell in Japan, right? So if I can come in, get a new endorsement deal in Japan, maybe he's been able to squeeze more money out of ASICS than he did from Nike, because he was never that, AAA plus level athlete for Nike. I believe. I have no idea of knowing, but no way of knowing. But do you know what I mean?
No, I get what you're saying. And I fully believe that ASICS offered him more money than Nike did after leaving Barcelona. Totally. But do I think ASICS offered him so much money that Nike couldn't have matched it or offered him a little bit more?
No, absolutely
no, I don't think so. And I would argue Iniesta was a big deal. Like, look, Magista Obra 1 was a football boot that shifted the entire football industry. And who was really the front face of that boot? It was Iniesta. And he was responsible for CTR 360 as well, along with Fabregas was used a lot in the early days. But later on, it really became Iniesta was the face of that line. I don't know. It's just something that was very surprising to me. And Nike, I think, we're seeing this from Nike and Adi for the most part, where I think that they've had some of these players for such a long time that even after they retire, while some of them are still involved in the game, they're such big names and they're so famous that they want to maintain them within the brand. So you have Brazilian Ronaldo, you have your Ronaldinho.
Yeah,
I fully believe Cristiano Ronaldo is still going to have boots and signature stuff once he retires. I think that's going to be for sure.
I think he's the only football player with a lifetime contract, isn't he?
He does, I think Messi's his lifetime as well with Adi.
Probably, yeah.
As far as I'm aware. But
you're right, yeah.
Yeah, so these are guys that are going to be around. But I think that the big brands in particular, Nike and Adi, seem to be making this shift towards really going after when they have the opportunity to jump on somebody that's like in their prime and is really like considered to be one of the best players in the world, they go for that deal.
Yeah.
But you also see a lot more of them cherry picking the very young talent. So I think guys coming in that are 17, 18 years old and have this potential to be the next big thing, they can pick these contracts up for very little. And I think that these players, because they're at the start of their career, they're going to be very inclined to sign. And that's where a lot of the focus has been, where the guys that are kind of in between, it's like, hey, you're 25 years old now and you're not really going to be, you're just kind of one of those players that's in the mix. Like, we don't really care as much. We're not willing to pay you this crazy amount of money anymore.
True, and I think finding the next superstar is probably more important to them than making big endorsement deals with, say, Ivan Rakitic or what's he called, the guy from Atletico Madrid who went to Juventus. I forget his name. He also played. What's his face?
Morata?
Morata. I was thinking like Morata. Sometimes you just forget. Morata, of course, an example of players who are, as far as I know, with Adidas, but who have also been rather liberal in their choice of footwear. Rakitic has been playing a lot in the remakes of the Preds, and Morata has basically just been wearing whatever. Like he appears to be a boot nerd, which is super cool, but staying within the Adidas brand, and maybe they're cool with him like that, just shopping around, showing whatever he wants. And there must be like less money involved, so it doesn't hurt. They don't come out and tell him strictly, you have to wear this because you're. I don't know, but yeah, I think for a guy like let's say Kylian Mbappe, he grew up a Ronaldo fan. Like he grew up seeing the Mercurial as the craziest stuff around, and then Nike come and offer him like a deal saying we want to make you a face of Mercurial, or initially the Hypervenom, but then the Mercurial, right? And if you're a young guy or 16, 17, 18, I mean, you're going to jump at that no matter the amount of money there. Of course, they've renegotiated since, I can imagine, and he's worth a lot of money to Nike now because he's going to be the next big thing probably. But there is just this trend, I think, of brands looking more and more towards youth that they can tie down for, let's say, 10 years and make them, just connected to the brand, for lack of a better word,
No, they can pick these players up for less money at the start of their career, and the longer they can tie them up, the more that they have potential to benefit from this contract. And you can argue that that's not right. And I've seen a lot of this conversation, especially with NFL players that are signing for less money to play with a certain team. And it's a little bit different because you have salary caps and stuff like that in a lot of American professional sports. But ultimately, you sign that contract. Nobody's forcing you to do that.
Absolutely.
So if the brands are negotiating a deal that you sign off on, then hey, you have to honor that deal for the majority of its, well, for its entirety, I guess. But absolutely, I don't know. Yeah. To talk about Rakitic really quickly and what he's been doing, I would argue that let's be honest, is Rakitic a popular player? Absolutely. Everyone knows who he is. Is he a guy that's selling football boots? No, probably I don't think so. So I think if you're going to have a guy like that signed on to your brand, maybe it makes more sense from a marketing perspective. And I'm just thinking, if I was in charge of Adidas, would I say, hey, you know what? Wear whichever Adidas product you'd like, whatever you want, switch it up. It doesn't have to be the latest thing. And does that help them in terms of promoting the latest products, which is ultimately what these brands are paying for these sponsorship deals? I guess not. But I think in terms of brand awareness and appealing to the enthusiast community and maybe just drawing attention that wouldn't otherwise be there if he was wearing the same Adidas boots as everybody else, there's some value to that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. The same thing with Toni Kroos. I mean, I assume that Adidas is still servicing him with his Adipures because, it's still brand recognition that he is just the white boot Adidas guy. That's just the way it goes. Like, that's Toni Kroos. And I can definitely see a lot of deals being structured that way. But to come back to the original question, like, could we see more and more players abandoning boot contracts and definitely with other endorsements becoming bigger and bigger? I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, I think the whole freedom to be a little more, the freedom of not being tied down to a brand is something that might be appealing to certain players, especially if, like Mesut Özil, you're on a ton of money already. And maybe this coming up and having more freedom in the boot market and, making more money in general. Maybe the whole getting boots for free is not as big of a deal to them anymore. We also saw, interesting thing when, I don't know if you saw it, when City played Southampton, they lost. Raheem Sterling was wearing a blackout pair of Phantom Venoms. And thought it was weird, but then I remembered that I initially thought it was the Techcraft and he was just like wearing them for fun, really. But it wasn't. It was just a standard blackout Phantom Venom. And I thought there was all this talk about him and, maybe teaming up with Jordan, and maybe there's little bit of a few issues with Nike there. But it's just like Raheem Sterling, he can basically go out right now and, do whatever he wants. Like, does he really need an endorsement deal? Maybe there's some. Well, he has the chance to become the number one for Jordan if he signs with them, the first guy to really go big with them. But does he need to? I don't think so.
No, he doesn't need to. Look, all these guys are making enough money that they can survive perfectly fine without any boot endorsement deal money. But I think that, like, a guy like Sterling is an example of a player who right now adds a lot of value to any brand that he signs with from a marketing perspective. So he can actually, I would assume, command a pretty decent amount of money in any endorsement deal that he signs with whatever brand it may be. So if his contract is up with Nike, which it looks like that's the case with him wearing blackout boots, which is basically, when you see pros doing that, that's them saying, I am out of contract and I do not want to give anybody free marketing. Like, don't use my likeness to promote your boots.
Exactly.
That is what they are saying with that. But I also think that you have people signing endorsement deals that have, like, you used Mbappe as an example, grew up a huge Ronaldo fan. It's a dream to sign with Nike and have his own signature Mercurials. You don't think that a guy like that has that in his head, like, hey, I would like to be the next big thing. Like, I want to be the next Ronaldo. I want to potentially surpass that, and I want to be in that same position and have this legacy with the football boots tied into all of it. And I think that's for a footballer, I think that's kind of a cool thing to have as a part of your career. Because, like, Cristiano Ronaldo has been amazing his entire career, but the boots have been kind of this cool side story and a big part of it, no?
And I think maybe that's that makes a lot of sense to me. So the really high profile players, I don't think we're ever going to see them just, dropping their brands or dropping their brand endorsement deals. I might see it happening, or might see a bigger potential for it happening with some of the lower tier players. Let's say your James McLean's. He probably doesn't even have a deal. Or your Hector Bellerin or Wilfried Zaha. He's probably still tied to Nike, but how tied is he to Nike? Does he get he's obviously buying the Safaris and the Mercurial Dream Speeds on his own, because he's not on the list. So I think we might see some more players on those, in those lower tiers, maybe dropping out of their boot endorsement deals if there's not really anything in them. But of course, you'll have those players who have the potential to go down as greats in football history, and they will probably also care more about their legacy and becoming those brand guys who are being remembered for having their own boot and elevating the brand to something more, making it a personal story between them and the brand. I could see that happening.
I get what you're saying. I also think that there's the argument that none of these players, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi included, I don't think they're bigger than the brands themselves. Like, I think Nike and Adidas are far more influential than any one player can be. They use the players to their advantage to market their products. And I think that a guy like Ronaldo brings value to Nike in terms of driving sales to a particular product. But I also think that if you took a guy like Messi or Ronaldo and they started their own brand that's completely unknown and they tried to make their own football boot, is that boot really going to be that popular?
No.
I don't think so, right? And we've seen examples of this, not so much in football boots, but we've seen a lot of it in basketball, where a lot of guys have signed with some of these lesser known Chinese brands that are popular in China, but obviously not very popular or readily available in North America, right? And while I'm sure it's successful in one part of the world in terms of having the global appeal of a Nike or Adidas or a Puma, these world-known brands that are very easily accessible, it never works out as well. So, like I said, I think there's huge value to the brands and the partnerships that they can have with some of these like elite players that are available. And if they're willing to pay the money for it, I think there's definite value there. But I think we're seeing less and less of these endorsement deals coming into play is all the guys that are somewhere in the middle, that they're part of the team, they're important in their own respect, but they're not really going to be selling football boots. So brands are not valuing those people as much. I also think when you're talking about just being a bigger name out of contract, what has become such a big part of professional athletes in general, it's the fashion side of things, right? Because like off the pitch, what's it all about? The designer brands and this and that. And I think that the boots have become a big part of that culture. So having this ability to wear whatever you want as not so much me saying that I like this particular boot, but more so as a fashion statement and to be different from everybody else. I think that's something that a lot of these professional athletes, if they're not commanding the big bucks from an endorsement deal, they value having that freedom to make what I think a lot of them view. There are boot nerds that are professional footballers, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of these guys are more so into the fashion side of things and just being different more than anything.
And maybe looking at Hector Bellerin, that's exactly
right?
what he's doing. Like now he's not tied to Puma anymore, and maybe he's not tied to Nike either. I don't know, but he seems to be more free, and he can basically do whatever he wants. Like if he wants to then do a fashion show for Adidas, I mean, what's stopping him? Unless he's of course signed with Nike, but I definitely get that part, and that's also very interesting. That maybe that's also taking over for a lot of guys and replacing the need to have an association with the boot brands. Maybe the desire to have an association with more fashion brands or fashion lines from let's say certain sportswear brands could be that Bellerin wants to do Yeezy stuff. Now he can. Maybe that might come in and play a bigger role in the future. That's a pretty interesting view. I like that.
Yeah, well, Jay, you see it all the time, right? The first day that the contract ends, they're wearing another brand.
Yeah.
So what
exactly.
what does that tell you about any kind of brand loyalty? There was never any brand loyalty. It was just about the money, right? So
yeah, like as we've seen, Özil was holding Merckx like a couple of days after his contract was up with Adi. It's fun.
How it goes.
It's fun. So let's see what happens in the future. I think it was a pretty interesting discussion to just see what's gonna happen. I think the whole fashion brand statement idea is pretty spot on. That I can see that happening. But yeah, let's see what the future holds. We're not gonna see Mbappe or Neymar or those guys, Joao Felix, shopping around for whatever they want to wear in 10 years time. I think they're still gonna stay with brands, right?
Oh, can I also just make a quick comment here? To the people who DM me every time they find a picture of Messi wearing Nike slides as if this is like breaking news, can you please stop that? Do you get those DMs, Jay?
I don't. I'm very intrigued to hear what is there.
My God.
But I think because the deal is with Messi, and just so you don't have to say it for the millionth time, probably is that Messi is playing for FC Barcelona, who are sponsored by Nike, which means that Messi is contractually obligated to wear the team training kit, the shirt, the shorts, the socks, and the slides, and whatever else that they provide, he's bound to wear that. And also it's super easy. So yeah, he's going to do that. I mean, is it a big deal that Messi wears a Nike shirt every time he plays a match? No, just the same as Ronaldo, sometimes it looks like he's wearing Adidas socks, tennis socks underneath his sock match sleeve because it's provided by the club.
Yeah, those are totally separate endorsement deals. And also, I guess on the topic of endorsement deals, I think that the brands are very much going after players that they also own the rights to the club that they play for and or national team. I think there's a lot of value to that.
Yeah, that's the gold mine, which is why Mbappe and Neymar for Nike make like a world of sense. world of sense. So yeah, there's that. But let's close it on that. Please DM Josh every single time you see Messi wearing anything Nike. I'm sure he'll appreciate it very much. Please and thank you. You can send screenshots to me of the raging answers that come back. I'm gonna do that myself at least. So we got some questions. I teased a little bit for great questions today. The first one made me chuckle a little. Actually, I enjoyed that. It's from Ethan Kyle, and this is a comment on episode 73 of the Boot Nerds podcast. 73, keep that in mind. This seemed like a forced collaboration. We all know you guys probably have a big rivalry. Lamau. Bro, this is the 73rd episode of the Boot Nerds podcast. We're a year and a half into the podcast collaboration, if you will. We have been collaborating for the good part of 2 years now and have been following each other for God knows how long. And I would consider Josh my friend. So I don't know. It's not full. I mean, we've been doing this stuff for ages now. I mean, unless you consider us big rivals.
I'm not going to lie to the people. Everything he just said
Ethan
is a
Kyle?
lie. He's 100% right.
That comment.
No, there's to be fair, there's never really been any beef between us. Again, I've always found it very strange when people get mad at either you or me about an opinion on a football boot, and that's ultimately all we're really doing on the internet, which I don't think is a very controversial thing in any way.
I know, man.
So for us, just the concept of like me being very upset at you for disagreeing with me on what is good or bad about a particular football boot is a hilarious concept. But
I know, and in the age of like throwing shade and every man and his dog on YouTube, that seems to be like the diss tracks and battles. In Germany, there's this big keeper beef going on where everyone's they're dissing each other about who's the best goalkeeper on you. I mean, I've never wanted to be a part of that.
I've actually seen some stuff about that. I can't believe that's a thing.
It's ridiculous, right? It is what it is. But at least I've never been at a point where I've been mad at what you've been doing because you're a rival. I don't see it that way. I see it basically as, I'm just glad that there's someone else like me out there who's obsessed enough with football boots that I'm not the only idiot on the internet just talking about it. So I don't know where all this rivalry thing is coming from. It
is. It's out there. The people feel the energy through the podcast.
Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's I just thought that was hilarious. 74 episodes in and we still hate each other. It's still forced, yeah. We're only doing this for the cloud. Absolutely. So a comment here from Solo CVLI92. Yeah. You guys need to play in the Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 betas. They're not good. Huge flaw in the tongue, not providing a snug fit. I have a lot of slipping in that boot. And I also thought that was a fun comment because, I mean, I can't speak for you, but at least I have played in the boot and I guess you have too a lot. And I gotta be honest, I've read a lot of comments about people having like a slightly loose collar around their ankle. And I've really been looking hard at my feet and how they move and looking at the slow-mo footage in the review. And I don't have that. It's super snug on me. So I don't understand how it's.
This has been a complaint since like one-piece boots started becoming a thing. Because I remember a lot of people complaining about this with the Vapor 10. And almost every single time, because it eventually got to is like, hey, send me a picture of the boots on your feet so I can just see, because I don't believe you. And 9 out of 10 times, the reason why that was the case is the boots were too big. The one time where it was not a case where the sizing was wrong is when somebody legitimately just had super, super narrow, like low volume, very flat feet. and it just didn't take up the volume in the boot. But if the boots are too big, not only do they get longer, not only do they get wider, they increase in volume ever so slightly. So if your boots are too big, which is very common for people to be wearing them like that, you end up with too much space. But there's nothing about the shape of that boot that's really that different from past Morelli and Neos. So just because it doesn't have a tongue anymore does not mean that like there's a design flaw.
No, and look, I'm not going to tell people that I don't believe them, because obviously it's a problem to a couple of guys out there and that must suck. But I can see, you know, especially with, it makes a lot of sense, you know, if they haven't gone down the half size that at least we recommend doing in order to get the best possible fit, I need to go and try my boot that's the actual size I wanted to see if it's a problem, because I can imagine that being a potential issue, because, you know, to me, it's relatively snug and fits. I haven't had a problem. So, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, because it sucks buying such an expensive boot, being hella excited, and then not having the full Mizuno made in Japan experience. But yeah.
Yeah. It's also worth saying that not every boot's going to fit you perfectly. And just because we said something really nice about a particular boot we both really like, it doesn't necessarily mean you're really going to like it, right?
It is your responsibility and your fault entirely. It was a joke. It was a joke.
It's my fault.
What?
No.
Please laugh at my jokes.
This has become a life skill that I think a lot of people are missing these days. And it's the ability to take in information, make a judgment call. And then in the case of a piece of footwear, in this particular instance, you've seeked out information from J. Mike and myself, who hate each other. You have decided that we both really like this boot and think that it's good. So you're also agreeing with that opinion based on what we're saying. You're purchasing the product. You're probably ordering it online. They arrive at your house. You're excited about the boots. You put them on your feet and they don't feel quite the way you were expecting them to, or you simply just don't like how they feel. At that point, you have to make a decision and say, hey, these aren't right for me. I'm going to return them and get something else. That is a decision that no matter what we say about any product, you have to be able to do for yourself, because you are the one wearing them on your feet and only you know how they feel on your feet.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of, and you know, the curse of what we do. We can only talk about our experience. And yeah, we have a lot of experience with football boots, but I've never tried having a wide foot in a football boot. I don't know what that's like. I can't, there's no way of me,
You quite literally can't be in someone else's shoes.
But that's the thing. So I can only tell people how I feel, and I can say, okay, this is a relatively snug fitting boot, or I can say that I needed to go down half a size, so probably people need to do the same. Or if, you know, this is a wide boot, it's a little too wide for me, but maybe it'll fit someone else good. There's a lot of volume. There's too much volume for me. That's all I can say, but I can't guarantee anyone, and neither can you, that is going to work for them. So again, Solo Slivly 92. I'm sorry, maybe it's the sizing, but you know, otherwise it just might not be good for you. Get
that's the first time I've heard that opinion.
Okay, fair enough. I've seen it a couple of times, maybe also on the podcast we did, and then on my Instagram, you know, some people complaining. It's like a handful, but it's still noticeable. Okay, next comment. Hey, Boot Nerds, big question. If it wasn't for the demon skin element, where would you guys rank the Predator 20.1 low among the rest? Would it still stand above many other top-class boots, or would it drop dramatically? It's your number one. I'm looking at you. Two girls over drinks, go.
Yeah, I recently made a video on the Uniforia Pred 20.1 low, and when I do these reviews on colorways that I've done before, aside from just showing the color, I think it's fun to do a review from a different perspective. And the perspective that I went with is, and it occurred to me, it's like, if you took away the demon skin spikes, this is a kind of mediocre football boot. Absolutely. In the grand scheme of like top end boots that are out there. Like for me, it would literally go from like number one or top three, depending on what your opinion is, and it would drop. If we're talking about just the Adidas brand, I wouldn't pick it over X. I probably wouldn't pick it over Nemesis.
No.
And I don't know that. It would probably be like, it'd be the last pick out of all the 0.1 models from the Adi brand.
Look, I agree. Yeah, Copa too. couple too.
Yeah, like I don't think it's a bad football boot
But it's
as
not-
is.
But if that textile upper is the only thing you have on the boot, then yeah, it's probably gonna feel a little bit cheap, and there's not gonna be a lot of structure in it, and like. But it's like saying, what would you do if you took out the high tenacity yarns and the vapors, or the net fit from the futures? I mean, you take away the main feature of a boot, would it still be as good? That's the main feature the boot has been designed around. It's like taking away the wheels of a race car. Would it still be a good car? No. That was a bad analogy.
That was a bad analogy. But you're right. They design it to have all the elements together. It'd be like taking a Ferrari, pulling the engine out, and putting in a Toyota Prius engine.
Yeah.
It's not
a good Ferrari anymore. No, exactly.
No, now it's a crap Ferrari.
So yeah, it would drop dramatically. That is one of the key USPs on the Preds. And would it be as good without it? No, it wouldn't.
Yeah, let's just draw a parallel. Like the high tenacity yarns is an extreme example because you can't feel it. But if let's say you take away you put a Nike Premier sole plate on a Mercurial.
It's not the same.
Right?
If people think that I'm mad at Mizuno for still running conical studs on the Neos, then I mean that floppy, flaccid Premier plate on the Mercs, no.
Yeah,
no.
Right? So it's a fair question, but it's also kind of unfair. But you're right. I don't think that as a base.
No.
If you just look at the Predator 20.1 and even 20 plus as just a base, it's fairly unextraordinary.
Yeah. It works. It works in the combination with Demon Skin. But that's because Demon Skin is like the primary driver behind it. Anyway, another question from B. Just B. You guys have to be honest and admit New Balance boots look good and feel good in the recent past years. And for the most part, I mean,
I don't remember saying otherwise. I don't think. Look, I'll say this much: I don't think that the new laceless boot, the Tequila V3, is very good.
I agree.
I think it's okay. I think it gets a pass as a laceless boot if we're giving a pass to all the other ones.
It looks cool. The two colorways, the black and the white one. I mean,
I like the white ones a lot more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Furon's a good boot. It's been,
Furon's great.
The two first Tequilas were good boots, decent looking. I'd say it's been a while since they've had a proper, we're going back to the Vizaro 2 days before they until they really messed up. The Furon 4s and 5s were, and the 3s.
They're okay. They get a pass, but it's not one of those boots that I think you pick over something else.
Yeah, and I think, the new design direction Furons, they look really good. Gotta say that. Tequilas, they look good. It's just for me, the quality is a little bit, it could be better. It could be, Tequilas could be better. But yeah, he's making a fair point. Then from Ruslan Ayman. Hey, fellow boot nerds. I have a question about Bosch Djurjevic's, that's funny, playtest videos. Where are they? Any plans for a reboot?
It's very clever. That was a very clever comment. I'll give him that.
Second question, would it make sense for Nike to remake the CTR 360 Maestro? English, it's also difficult today. CTR 360 Maestro, one of the Tiempo Legend ones. Love the podcast and enjoy the summer. So are we going to see a reboot of the SR4U? Nah, I'm not going to do that.
Bosch Djurjevic. I don't even think I could say that one. Long story short, I'm working on it. Obviously, you guys know that for those, if you're asking this question, I assume you know the backstory on issues that I've had with various indoor facilities. It's just how it is.
Is that one that, the OG SR4U pitch? Is that still a marijuana factory?
I believe so. I'm not sure, to be honest. You drive by it on the highway, the signs are still up. I don't know. There's never any cars there.
Crazy story.
It's a strange situation.
Wow.
So okay. I'm working on something. My whole thing with the playtest videos is it's never been, the channel was never really built on it to begin with. And I think there's an entertainment value to it, but I also don't think that it really adds anything to my opinion that I'm giving anyways. So
yeah. You're playing in them anyway. You're just not recording it right now.
Yeah, it just hasn't been a top priority for me. But yeah,
And also,
I want to get back into it more. It's really just a matter of some privacy on the fields.
Yeah.
And being
and
able
also,
to record.
man, at least having been at Unisport where, obviously we have videographers and plenty of them, I wouldn't enjoy going out and shooting a review or a playtest on my own. It's just tough. You can't do this
thing to do.
Like now you've also shot with us, and it's just something else when you have a videographer telling you can, like do a close-up slow-mo shot of the boots, and it's just not the same, right? And that's the way it is with the, you're you. And that's the way it is. But it's just also like, I don't think people understand or maybe appreciate how much work you actually have to put into making a playtest look nice when you're just doing it on your own. It's at least hard to make fancy and blingy and all that stuff that people like to see.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you made a really good point in that you guys set the bar so high.
Thank you.
That it's like,
I didn't say you said that. I didn't say
for me to go out there and just like record myself taking some shots, like there's some entertainment value to it, I suppose, but the quality standard to do it all on my own. And yeah, could I hire somebody on to like make something very cinematic? I mean, I suppose that I could,
I guess,
but it's just not at this point. It's not what I feel like my channel is about.
No.
And even like I would have to hire an entire film crew to try and keep up with you guys. Like, can I just clarify? Because I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. A 4-minute Unisport playtest video takes like 5 hours to record. It blew my mind how long we spent making videos when I was down there with you guys.
Yeah.
And even in Japan, like I was like guys, this is insane. And the other thing is like the video comes out because I just like help record it and then I leave and then I wait for a week till it comes up and I'm kind of excited to see it because I was like I spent 6 hours recording this with these guys and they cut like 80% of what we shot. So it's like that could have been 2 hours. We should have just did all that. Like again, you guys, I don't think people understand how much effort and time goes into what you guys do. It's genuinely like very impressive.
Look, the big reviews take a long time to do. Like they take, often we set aside like a week. We don't work like constantly on that, obviously, but we shoot for many, many days and we prepare for, let's say, like we start preparing 2 months ahead. Maybe sometimes even earlier, make arrangements, do a storyline, obviously it's like the mega big reviews for like the big releases. But, when we went to that zoo with Komodo dragons, I mean, that just took a lot of preparation and the shots aren't very long, but it just takes a lot of time, driving there and getting, safety check. And, I have to actually get the guts to go in there and we have to wait for the dragon to lie still and not be super vicious and all that. It's like, it just takes time. And then the guys have to edit it and it's a big operation. It takes a lot of time.
It's funny. I got to give you credit though, Jay. You turn it on. Like you go from like totally normal person to like Unisport J Mike in like, it's like a switch.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And it's just on and off. It's incredible. He remembers all his lines. He rarely screws up. And then I come in and I got to remember like one sentence and it takes me 15 tries. Oh, it's the worst. It's fun making videos with you guys, but it makes me so nervous.
Okay, no, I understand that, but that's the other strength with you is that I have a script that I follow because I need to with all the videos I'm making. Otherwise, I'm gonna ramble, like you can probably guess from watching the podcast. I'm just gonna ramble on for ages, and my colleagues hate that. So, but you have the strength that you're so good at just like talking, improvising, keeping the flow going. That's something I admire a lot. So, that's the thing. Like, why should we be rivals when what we do it complements each other's work so well?
Yeah, that's a good point because that's kind of what it turned into. It's like I don't want to make the same content. Exactly. If we're going to be reviewing the same boots, I don't want to do them the same way.
Exactly. And especially like as we've seen lately, we just have the opportunity to get the boots before you do because we're the retailer. And then on the other hand, you're a bit more free in what you can do and say with the boots. I mean, it's That's why the Boot Nerds podcast is the perfect friendship, and not we hate each other, but we have to do it for clout, right? So so should
There's
Nike
a second
remake
part to that
the
question.
CTRs or the Legend ones? Any of those Maestro ones?
I would like to see a CTR come back. I think I'd be curious to see what they could do with a synthetic leather material in 2020. I think that'd be cool. And I mean, I think the Tiempo going back to something more along the lines of a Legend 1, where you have a more pure and simple leather upper, and then do something more fancy with the sole plate. I like that idea. Like, to me, Legend 1 still holds up in terms of being very wearable today.
It does. If they change
More
the
so
outsole
than
to,
like
to
almost
the modern,
any older Nike boot.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, it wouldn't be top of my list, but I wouldn't be against it. I'd take it. But I don't think Nike should necessarily do it. It's not something I would call them up and say, "Yo, do this. We'll take 10%." I don't believe that much in it. It's not one of those ideas. It's only the golden idea.
If these companies ever start taking us up on these 10% offers,
oh man, we're gonna be
we're gonna be loaded.
Man, I'm gonna have a car problems too channel. So next question, Yusuf, and just saying that, I'm never going to have a channel like that because cars in Denmark are expensive. Did we do the math? Like how much more expensive are cars in Denmark?
We did the math on a couple cars. It was like 3 to 4 times in some instances. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. When you told me, I had to look it up for myself because I'm like, there's no way this guy knows how to use Google. Like
exactly, yeah. And we talked about some of your cars, and you told me what you got them for, and I was like, that's So please brands, take us up on the ideas. Send those 10%. So I have actually a shot of driving something remotely awesome. With that said, though, Yusuf bars some Neo 2 betas versus Neo 3 betas. Is that a question for any of us? Or is it just a Neo 3? It is for me.
Neo 3 beta, and sorry, what was the other one?
The 2 beta.
Oh.
I know you love it a lot, but I mean...
I could go back and forth. Like, I wouldn't be, having worn the Neo 3 beta, I wouldn't be upset wearing the Neo 2, but I think that the 3 improves on mainly structure. I think it's a little bit more responsive. I think that the feel of the sole plate in terms of how it moves with your foot feels a little bit more... I don't know if smooth is the right word, but it feels more natural maybe.
But the 2 beta is just a little bit more minimal. It feels a little bit more raw somehow, right? It feels a little bit more like...
Well, it is. It's definitely thinner.
And I'm not going to say it feels more special, but it kind of does. Like, it's a little more of a concept car feel compared to the 3, which is a more like... It would be like driving a Le Mans car or Formula 1 car in the Neo 2 betas versus driving, let's say, a AMG GTR, which is, I guess, like, I've never driven one. You tell me. But it looks like it's slightly more comfortable than those hardcore, Why am I talking about cars? I clearly don't know anything about it.
Yeah, you always seem to go to the car analogies for whatever reason. I don't know why.
I just want to, I want to speak your language, but clearly I'm like very, very, like, you're just blindlessly clawing around like that. But you get my point. It's like the Neo 2 is a little bit more concept car, and the other one is like something I'd rather wear for a full season if I can only choose one boot. Let me put it.
Yeah, look, I think that if you're going to have a mass release product, having the boot beefed up a little bit like they did with the Beta 3, it makes more sense, because something else we always tout with the Mizuno brand is the quality and durability. And the Neo 2 Beta is taken to an extreme that we don't often see from Mizuno, where I think it's very well made. It's obviously put together extremely well, but long-term durability, when you make it that thin, I don't know that makes a lot of sense if they're going to charge upwards of $300 for them.
No. So we're lucky to have both in our collection. Let's put it that way. I realize it's completely like dancing around the question, but yeah. I picked the 3. I'd pick the 3, to be honest.
Yeah, I would too. Like, to actually wear for a whole season, I'd pick the 3.
Yeah. Last question here, Pavel Stanchuk. If I have completely butchered that name, I'm very sorry. But it's Polish and there's a lot of lines going through L's and stuff. I don't know how to say. Anyway, the effect of the slipping sock in the football boots, is it caused by the quality of the sock or the insole or something else? That's an interesting question.
I mean, both.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both.
I would say
heel liners are also a big one.
Mm-hmm. And the whole structure in the boot itself, like if there is a decent amount of lockdown through either the heel or how the midfoot is holding your foot in place, that's gonna help in eliminating the movement of the sock, your foot and the sock inside the boot. But of course, the more grippy elements, the more hold or grippy elements you have inside the boot, the better it's going to be. So if the insole is grippy, your socks are grippy, there's good hold from the heel or from the laces, obviously you will have less movement inside the boot. So it is a couple of factors. I would say though that the biggest help that I can get is a pair of good grip socks. Like that is what for me eliminates the most, maybe combined with having using the right lacing technique, going for the runner's loop or something like that. That really helps keeping the boot in place. Foot.
Adding a grip element certainly helps to reduce any kind of slippage. But even when we're just talking about straight up non-grip socks, I think everyone's had like a pair of team socks that they absolutely hated and they just don't fit properly and they slide around and they're like the really thin kind of nylon material. They have no softness to them. That material sucks.
Yeah.
It's very slippery on the inside of the boot. It's also slippery against your foot. It's just not a good material.
The plague. You want a sock that is as close to your foot as possible. So maybe with a slight compression effect, so you bring every element you bring as close to your foot as possible. Because the more, the sloppier, looser the sock is, there's going to be more chance or risk of you sliding around inside the sock and then inside the boot as well. So yeah, good point. Good point.
I also think that there's a little bit of softness is important.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that helps to absorb that little bit of slippage, if that makes any sense at all.
I know what you mean.
Rather than just if it's basically like a hard, thin nylon material, you kind of just slide over top of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, having a little bit of plushness, so the little hairs also go in the socks. They go in and drag when your feet starts to sweat. Basically, they go in and you get slightly more. What do you call it? Tactile sensation, grip.
Yeah,
let's say grip.
It's like. What I'm picturing right now is in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie when he gets those things sprout from his fingertips. That's what I'm picturing.
Someone should make a sock like that. I'll take. Well, obviously you take. Now we'll bump it up to 20%. That's a really good idea, and I need that. I need that Lamborghini. So yeah.
Spider-Man socks.
20%. We'll take a Nike. So yeah, but it's like a couple of things, Pavel. So yeah. Lacing technique, socks. That would be what I would go for to eliminate all of the movement inside the boot. But guys, that was episode 74 of the Boot Nerds podcast. No, sadly, we still don't really hate each other, but who knows what's going to happen in episode 75. Well, if you have any questions that you might, that you see potential in dividing a big rift between Josh and me or whatever you call it, let us know in the comment section right down below and we'll answer the best question in the next episode in the Q&A section. Obviously, also, if you want us to talk about anything particular, let us know right down below. Make sure you've liked the episode here if you enjoyed the content. Make also sure to subscribe to the Boot Nerds podcast in the white bubble in the middle of the screen. You can go follow Josh. You can go follow us at Unisport. And with that said, I've been J Mike, and I approve this message. Thank you very much.
Later.